Chapter 5.4 Tells. Deegan noticed Retta's strong eye contact with Osvaldo, the way she giggled, and the affectionate, playful way she slapped Osvaldo's hands while they talked. Their bot waiter returned. "Sir, your meal." It set his plate down. "And your dates." The bot placed Retta's sizzling steak in her vacant space. "Oh no, she's not my date." The bot didn't care. It nodded, returned to the kitchen, and Deegan wondered why he felt compelled to set the record straight. Am I jealous? Deegan shook it off, turned towards Retta and Osvaldo, and saw his bot serve them. Red got her own steak with Osvaldo and left Deegan in the dust. She cut her steak, took a bite, and relished the sweet taste of victory. Even losing the bet, Deegan couldn't help but smile. She got her free meal after all. Deegan rested his chin in his hand and couldn't take his eyes off her. She was magnetic the way she drew him in. The glimmer in her eyes, the excitement in her smile, the attention she gave Osvaldo, all felt genuine. For Deegan, on a planet surrounded by scoundrels and cheats, Retta shined like a star. Osvaldo looked at his link and realized he lost sense of time. He fumbled to pay the check, and Retta offered him credits, but he shook his head in defiance. He wouldn't let her pay. He hailed a server bot, tapped his link to the bot's screen, and Retta thanked him. Osvaldo got up, offered an arm to Retta, and she took it. Red followed Osvaldo out of the restaurant, looked at Deegan as she passed, and his bot waiter placed the check next to Retta's cold, uneaten steak beside Deegan. "The check, sir." Deegan glanced and did a double take. He didn't realize how high up Retta ran the bill. He winced. The bot noticed, and Deegan asked, "Can you put this on my tab?" "Sure, Master Deegan. As a reminder, your balance is..." Deegan didn't care. He leaned past the bot, kept his eye on Retta and that lumbering, rich oaf Osvaldo, and told the bot as he stood up to follow, Yep, got it. Thanks." Deegan chased after them, and found them seated at a blackjack table. The dealer bot had a central spinal column made of cards and 4 pairs of arms. Its head was a spinning sphere of cameras that watched every player from every angle. Cards flew up the spinal column, shot down the arms, and the dealer prepared the next round. Osvaldo was seated, and beside him, leaned against an open chair, was Retta. She was laughing with Osvaldo while they played. "Excuse me," Deegan said to Retta, eyeing the open chair she leaned on. "Mind if I sit here?" "Oh, of course," Retta said, smiling while Deegan was heated. "Deegan, I'd like to introduce you to Osvaldo." Osvaldo looked up, his thick hollow lenses magnifying the size of his eyes. He reached a hand out to Deegan, and Deegan accepted his cold and clammy handshake. "Ah, a pleasure," Deegan feigned. "So, you're watching Osvaldo play?" "No, he's letting me play," Retta said, and swapped spots with Osvaldo. "He taught me his tricks, and I told him I'm pretty good at reading people." "Oh." Deegan was surprised Osvaldo offered Retta gambling money so freely. "Well then, shall we?" Retta sat down at the table, and the dealer bot passed out cards that floated on the table. She grabbed hers, and, looking at the other players, read their facial expressions. What Osvaldo didn't know was that he taught her an important lesson about her baton. If she could feel what someone else felt, put herself in their shoes, then she could get a small glimpse into their mind. There were 2 others seated at the table with her and Deegan, but her attention was drawn to one, a gaunt, lanky man with beady eyes. He looked like the human version of a praying mantis. His face was already a dead giveaway. He tweaked his nose any time he got a bad hand, irritated and angry seeing it. Retta focused on that emotion of annoyance, closed her eyes, and as she did, the baton let her slip into his mind. She caught a glimpse of his vision, and saw a king and a 6 in his hand. It worked. While she closed her eyes, Deegan wondered what she was up to. Within a turn, Retta won her hand. Within a round, Retta doubled her earnings. Within a game, she amassed a stockpile. "Think you're good?" Deegan teased. "No," she said and pointed to her pile. "I know I'm good." Retta impressed Osvaldo. He patted her on the shoulder and was proud of his protege. He thought he would be teaching her, but it seemed Retta was a natural on her own. She's doing too good to just be reading people, Deegan thought. He'd been playing fair, but he wanted to prove what he could do. The next round of cards came out, and with a swipe of his hand, Deegan created a holographic skin. He changed his cards to a jack and an ace. Well, 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 how lucky am I, he said. I'll stay. Of all the players at the table, Deegan was the one Retta couldn't read. Whenever she concentrated on him, or his facial expressions, she couldn't read him. Her baton never glowed bright with him. It stayed sterile, cold, black ink. What is he hiding? Her attention was on Deegan, and that was exactly what he wanted. He creased the corner of his cards, checked their number and suit, and under the noses of everyone at the table, changed them. A graze of his hand and the cards were dealt in his favor. What's the matter, Ed? He said to her. You're good at reading people, right? Yeah, she said, confident and smiling back. I am. Maybe the baton wouldn't work, but Retta was smart enough before the baton. She knew Deegan couldn't keep this winning streak forever. If he won every hand, the dealer would suspect something. Maybe she could have called out this cheating, but it was even more fun to beat a cheater at their own game. What? Deegan teased her, watching him. Can't keep your eyes off me? The next hand was dealt, and Retta had it. Her perfect 21. This was the time to go in and see how Deegan would react. She put her bet in, watching Deegan as he flipped his cards over. When he looked, he bit the inside of his lip, so subtle it was nigh imperceptible. That's it, Red thought. That's his tell. He looked back up at her and was met by Retta's confident smile. She pushed her hollow chips towards the center of the table and told the dealer, I'll raise. Deegan hesitated and looked between his hand and the hollow chip pool at the center table. I'll match her. Deegan pushed equal chips towards the center. Is he going to change his cards? They revealed their cards, and Deegan lost. His cards weren't even close. A 3, a 6, and a 5. He didn't even try. You called my bluff, he said like a passing remark. Somehow, even after his loss, there was barely a dent in his chips. He still had a stockpile. With how much she put in, there should have been more damage. She took her next hand and bounced between watching Deegan's pile and looking at her hand. Of course, right after a perfect deal, she had 2 terrible cards. She came nowhere near 21, but wasn't willing to bust. She wanted to test Deegan. She raised again and watched Deegan match her. But when he did, he covered his pile with his hand, gripped a set amount of chips, and slid them to the table. Between the slits of his fingers, she saw the faintest shimmer of light, and when Deegan removed his hand, there was 1 more chip than she counted a moment earlier. Please, show your cards, the dealer bot requested. Somehow, Deegan still lost. And then it clicked. He's hedging his losses with fake wagers, Red realized. He's making holograms of hollow chips. Deegan didn't need cards up his sleeve. He quite literally had any card he wanted in his hand when he wanted. If he needed to swerve suspicion, he'd fake his bets until he made it back. Sure, they were both winning, and the entire goal was to get in and out with credits in hand, but Reddit couldn't believe that this dealer bot, or some other camera with prying eyes, couldn't see through Deegan's illusions the same way she could. And then, she jinxed it. Because Deegan caught the attention of a man watching the table. A man who leaned forward into the light and revealed a single stream of tears trickling down his cheek. Cut across his face was a deep gash, leaving the edge of his eye raw and exposed, where tears constantly rolled. His raw scar was one of the last remnants of his humanity and who he was. It was the only remnant of what he looked like from the photo of him, Nika, and Tobias. It was Leaky Eye Luca. The rest of him had been rebuilt from metal. The bridge of his nose was an arched plate of silver. His jaw was stainless steel, the hinges screwed at the joint and its lower half pure metal. His opposite eye had a lens of amber that flickered with electricity. His hair was slicked back black, his expression stoic, and his presence unnerving. Deegan paused and took note of the man. "No, please," Luca said with the gruff politeness of a boxer. "Don't mind me. Continue." Luca took a seat, placed chips on the table, and was dealt in. Retta was worried, very worried. She knew Luca was hunting for her baton, but he didn't notice her yet. "Should I leave?" Luca scanned the table, and Retta raised her cards and tucked her face into them. "Shit, I can't now. He'll see me." She peeked over her cards and saw Luca wasn't looking at her. His attention was on Deegan, and she needed to leave it on Deegan until there was a window to escape. Deegan coughed, straightened his posture, and looked at his cards. She'd never seen Deegan this way. A bead of sweat ran down his temple. The color drained from his face. He folded his cards over, slid them to the front of the table, and conceded the round. Luca nodded with suspicion. That's strange." He revealed his cards and showed a winning hand. "A moment ago, you were on a winning streak." "Yeah, I was." Retta was uncomfortable with the strange, unspoken familiarity the two seemed to have. She needed to know more. Deegan was a lost cause for the Baton, but maybe Luca was different. She studied him and tried to parse out some emotional connection to hang on to, but her baton burnt bright red. It's burning like it did with Jimbo. Except this time, it seared her. She winced, scrunched her nose, and felt her skin singe where the baton was. "Control it," she thought, bearing the pain. "Control it." What was in that man's mind was not good. But she wanted to know. Her curiosity was calling to her. She had this prime moment to read Luca's mind. She could find out who was hunting her, where they were hunting her from, and where they all were. She could help end Tobias's parole. Maybe I could even find out where Mom is. She focused her thoughts on the searing, red-hot baton on her arm. At first, she heard all the thoughts around her, but as she focused, one emerged in the center, clearly, and it was Lucas. "Well, well, well. Hello there, you. You're in my mind now. You mastered that fast." Her heart sank. How does he know I'm in his mind? "Because I know a lot," he responded in his mind. "And it seems a lot more than you. You're connecting us, not reading my mind. And I can hear your thoughts too." She stopped thinking. She was terrified. She opened her eyes, dropped the connection, and without moving an inch, turned her eyes to look at Luca. His focus was still on Deegan. She was too terrified to think. I'd like to cash out," Deegan said to the dealer bot, choking as he swallowed. Retta was even more nervous. What else does he know that I don't? Under the table, she flicked out her link and texted Tobias. "Luca's here. Find me. Now." She shared her location with Tobias, stashed her link, and tried to find an opening to leave. Deegan took his chips, and in a subtle gesture, signaled with his eyes for Retta to do the same. He up and left, leaving little time to stay with Luca. She prepared to leave, but she accidentally looked at Luca, and he was staring right at her.